Welcome back to another Sunday prep day. If you're new here, every Sunday I prep for the week. So that means cutting all my vegetables and making things that take a little bit longer. So today I'm going to make some roasted salsa. That's what this garlic is for. I'm going to make some soup and I'm going to make some pickled cucumbers. So with this garlic, I'm going to roast it, but to make it easier to squeeze the bulbs out later, I cut it this way along the equator. And then I just wrapped it in foil to keep it all together. Then I also have a whole bunch of shallots that I've peeled. I'll add a bunch of chilies. I'll have some cayenne, and I have one jalapeno, so I'll do that. Then I have some cherry tomatoes. That's probably enough. I'll just save those for another time. And I'm going to top that off with a pepper. And that pepper, I want to blacken the skin. So I'm just going to add a bit of oil to this. And I've preheated my Ninja Foodi on grill, the highest it goes. So I can just pop this in. The reason I'm using a basket is, one, to catch all the drippings, because you want to use that. There's a lot of flavor in that. And two, I need the pot later to make my soup. So using the basket keeps everything nice and clean so I can just reuse it. So this is going to take 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how crowded your basket is. So I'm going to start with 10, and I'll start flipping things around, and I'll give it a little bit more time. So we'll see how long it ends up taking. So as usual, we're going to start by cutting up some onions. And I'll start going over the meal plan. By the way, I did specify some red onions as well, but they didn't have any at the market, so I'm just substituting with a yellow onion and some more shallot. So if you are curious, whenever I post this video on YouTube, I also make a post on Instagram where you'll find the before and after of all the prep, but also the meal plan, all the ingredients that I'll be using throughout the week. So not just what you see me prepping now, but also what I'll need later in the week. So, but this yellow onion is for my soup, because I don't want a red onion in there anyway. So that can go in my container with soup ingredients. So. And then I have another yellow onion, and I'll slice that as well for a few other things that I'll get to in a moment when I go over the meal plan. So, meal plan. I don't usually mention breakfast because I don't usually have breakfast. I'm just not a breakfast person. And most of my lunches are low-carb, keto-friendly, except on the weekend when I have my cheat days. So, as today is Sunday, a cheat day, I'm going to have some sandwiches for lunch. I just have some whole wheat bread. I have some chicken breast, some lettuce, probably some cucumber, maybe either some hot sauce or some sriracha mayo or something like that. We'll just see. And then for dinner, I have some schnitzels. So I'll have that with some kind of roasted potato. I think I'm going to do some wedges. And I'm thinking I'll have some green beans with that. But I'm going to prep some green beans and some broccoli. I'll use broccoli in 2 meals, and I will use green beans in 1. And which meal exactly is going to have what? Well, we'll just figure that out on the day itself, because I plan the ingredients, not the whole meal, so I can still change things. We'll just see what I'm in the mood for on that day. I'll still have some flexibility. So then we're on Monday. I do meatless Mondays. For lunch, I'm gonna have some soup, some vegetable soup. So I'll prep that in a moment. I always cut all my ingredients first, and then I do the other things. So for dinner on Monday, I'm gonna make some vegetarian quesadillas. So, I need a couple of cloves. I'll just leave these whole for the soup because they're gonna cook down anyway. And then these cloves I'll dice up. So, vegetarian quesadillas. If I make them as tacos, they're actually vegan, but I want some cheese in there. Because I also have some really large tortillas, perfect for quesadillas. So, and that's with, I'll do lentils and beans for the protein. And a lot of the bulk is going to come from some grated carrot, shredded carrot. So, there we go. Then we're on Tuesday. For lunch, I'm gonna have some sausages with some green beans or broccoli. Let's chop up a couple of chilies while I'm talking. So, yeah, we'll just see. Actually, I'm not gonna have sausages with green beans or broccoli. I'm gonna have some lettuce wraps with sausage that I'm gonna take out of its casing. So it's pork sausage that's already seasoned, and I'll have that with chilies, for example, that I'm chopping right now. Some of the onions that you saw me prep. Some of the pepper that I'll do right after this. So all kinds of good stuff. Maybe some cucumber if I have some left over. Some garlic. Then for dinner, I do Taco Tuesdays. I'm gonna have some beef tacos, so with some taco shells. And with the beef, I'm gonna use some of that roasted salsa. By the way, I'm using those for the vegetarian quesadillas as well. So the components I'm prepping, I'll use for several things usually. So then we're on Wednesday. That's when I'm gonna have broccoli with some sausages. Then for dinner on Wednesday, I'm gonna do a taco bowl. So some lime cilantro rice with some taco meat, and I'll use the same salsa again. And just having these peppers, cutting them in half, cleaning them out. These I'm just gonna dice up for things like my lettuce wraps, etc. So just gonna do everything in a dice, so cutting it lengthwise and then across for a dice. That is peppers done. I think these potatoes for tonight, I'll just do wedges. I like wedges; they go very well in the air fryer. So we were on Thursday. For lunch, I'm gonna do some lettuce wraps with some burgers, and I'll use some of the pickled cucumbers that I'll make in a bit. And then for dinner, I'm gonna do some burritos, again with ground beef, and I'll use the roasted salsa. And I'll do a lime cilantro rice. Some veggies, all that good stuff. So, what are we gonna do next? Let's do some cucumbers. So these cucumbers, I'm just gonna slice for my pickled cucumbers. I'm gonna use my slicer because it's a lot more even and quicker than I can do it by hand. And while I'm doing this, the first 10 minutes are up. So let me flip some things around. And I'll give that another 10 minutes, and I'll just keep slicing in the meantime. And I'll just pack as many of these cucumbers as I can in this jar. I'm gonna make my pickles in that. Whatever is left, I'll use for things like sandwiches and my lettuce wraps, etc. So that's one full jar. and the rest can just go to the side. Next up, I'm gonna do some carrot. I'm gonna shred this with my julienne slicer, not the same as the slicer I used before. This makes like little ribbons, and this is gonna be the base for my quesadillas. You can use a grater too, by the way. I just like this one. Okay, that's that carrot done. I'm gonna do some more carrots. I'm not gonna bother peeling, but this is gonna go in my soup. So cut that in half. I'm gonna leave my soup ingredients whole. I'm not gonna blend it like I do with some other soups. I'm gonna cut it reasonably fine, just in some slices. Now, this is probably enough for some soup, so I'll leave this bit for another day. This can go in with my soup ingredients. And another thing I need for my soup is some celery, so I'm just gonna slice that up again, reasonably fine, because I'm gonna leave everything whole. And again, that can go in with my soup ingredients. Then for my soup, I also want some parsley, and since I'm leaving it in, I'm just gonna give it a rough chop. Sometimes when I make soup like tomato soup, I don't want all that green in there. But in this case, I do. So I'm gonna cut about half that bunch, and just cut it a bit finer by running my knife through. Even though this is gonna go in my soup, I'm gonna add that at a later stage, so I'm gonna keep it separate. Then next up, I have some broccoli for 2 meals. So just take some of these leaves off. And I'll cut off some of the florets. And if they're bigger, I'll just cut them in half or quarters. And I'll just 2 portions is pretty much this entire head. There we go. And do save the stems because they're perfect for things like broccoli rice. Then next up, I have a whole bunch of green beans, and I'll just top and tail those. And this is enough for 1 portion. I'll do a rather big portion because there's not a lot of calories in there, and I do like getting my veg in. Okay, that is green beans done. And then I only have 1 thing left to chop, and that is some cilantro. I have 2 bunches. One is going to go in my lime cilantro rice, the other one's going to go in my salsa. My salsa is going to go in the blender, so I don't technically have to chop it, but since I'm chopping anyway, it just makes it a bit easier on the food processor. Make sure it doesn't get stuck on top if I chop it, so might as well just do it all in one go. So I'll just give it a rough chop, and now I'm cutting it nice and fine by running my knife through. Alright, cue. It's another 10 minutes gone. As you can see, it's starting to blacken, but not on all sides yet, so I'm going to give it 1 more flip on everything. And I'll do another 10 minutes, and then that should all be ready to go. And then I can let that cool down, peel the peppers, and make my salsa. But yeah, while I wait for that, I'm just going to put some things away that I don't need anymore. And then we'll be back so I can make the soup and things like that. By the way, that took 22 minutes to do all of that so far. While I'm waiting for that, I'm going to put half my cilantro, so 1 bunch worth, in the food processor already, so I can just put this away. And I'll also juice in the juice of 1 lime. And for my pickle, I just have some rice vinegar. You can use regular distilled vinegar. I just prefer rice vinegar in general. So I'm going to put that on some heat, and I'll add a bit of sugar. How much sugar you add depends on how much vinegar you have. So I'll just do 2 spoons, because I have quite a bit of vinegar in there. I don't want it to be overly sweet. I just want it to counteract the acidity a bit from the vinegar. And I'll also add a bit of salt, not too much. And I'll just let that come up to a simmer. Okay, the vegetables have got 30 minutes now. As you can see, the skin is starting to blister and turn black. So once that's cooled down, it's going to be a lot easier to peel. In the meantime, I switched over my Ninja Foodi to saute, and I'll add a bit of oil. And again, because I used the basket, that is still clean now, so I can use that to make my veg. So I did add a little bit of chili to this as well because I like everything spicy. So here I have my onion, my garlic, my carrot, my celery, and chilies. So I'll just saute those until they're nice and soft. I'll add a bit of salt as well. And in the meantime, the vinegar and the sugar mixture has come up to a simmer. So, and all the sugar is dissolved. So now I'm just gonna pour that over until this is filled all the way to the top. And I made exactly enough. Perfect. So I can put the lid on this and just let this cool down. And this is just a refrigerator style pickle, so it's not going to last forever. It's not fermented or anything like that. So I'll use that within the next week or two. But I need to keep that in the fridge. And now that vegetables have softened, I'm going to add my parsley. I'll add some water. And then because I have a pressure cooker, I'm just going to pressure cook this. You can just use a pan or a slow cooker or whatever. But I have this, so it's a little bit easier, a bit quicker. It's just vegetables, so I'll do 20 minutes and everything will be completely soft. Actually, I'm a little bit impatient, so I'm doing this while it's still kind of too hot to touch, but I'll brave it. But what I'm doing with the pepper is, as you can see, the skin, since it's blackened, comes off really easily. So I'll just do that, because the skin can be quite bitter, so you don't want that in your roasted veg. And I'm gonna continue peeling this, and I'll do the same thing with the chilies as well. The rest can just go in whole. And then, like I said, the tomatoes and the shallots, they can just go in whole, as well as all the liquid. You just want to get as much of that in there as possible. That's full of flavor. And then lastly, we have the garlic. It's completely soft now and a lot mellower. And since we cut that in half, you can already tell maybe that the cloves are just falling out. You can just give them a quick little squeeze. And to this, I'll also add a bit of cumin and some salt. Lid on, and I'll just give this a quick blitz until it's nice and smooth. And that is absolutely delicious. So now I'm just going to transfer that to a container that's a little bit easier to store in the fridge. And like I said, I'll use this for several meals this week. And this should last about a week, maybe a little bit longer in the fridge. So if I don't use it all up this week, I'll plan something to use up the leftovers at the start of next week. As the soup done, I just need to let that cool down so I can put it in the fridge, and that is ready to go for tomorrow. I just need to warm that up again. So that's all the prep work done for this week. So now I can have lunch or dinner on the table in minutes. If you like this kind of content, I do this every single Sunday, and if you'd like to see what I do with all the things that I've prepped, you can check out my Instagram where I post every single meal, or you can check out the video that I post about once a month on here where I show you everything I eat in a day for a whole week. And I think I posted one last week or the week before, so you can check for that on my channel. But yeah, if that all sounds good to you, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and thanks for watching. Until next time, bye for now.